Hey, HR friends, welcome back. So we're almost to the end of the 3-5 emotional 6.5 day sequence. We're going to talk about day 6 today. Day 6 is in this white rectangle, and before we talk about day 6, we're just going to do a general review of why it's so important that we do this polarity moment forecast. You see, we're in a sentient space-time construct. What does that mean? It means that we're sentient beings, which means that we have to process and deal with emotions. We're emotional. And we're supposed to be able to deal with our emotions in constructive, positive ways that don't stop us from having good, positive relationship with positive outcomes with all the individuals we interact in. Now, this is why it's so important to know when these polarity moments happen. If you were unaware of this, you should become aware of this. Our bodies are designed to be defensive. We have a defensive system of control. It's called the fight or flight mechanism. So what happens is these unseen agitations or these polarity moments that we're showing you will actually engage that defensive mechanism, and it does this without your permission, consent, or your awareness. Now, that's what we're trying to help you with. We're trying to help you become aware when these agitating moments are going to happen, because when these agitations happen and they activate our defensive design, it manipulates our choices. It makes us either want to ignore and run away from our problems, or it makes us want to stand up and fight for our problems that are going to create even more stress in our life. So, what we're trying to help you do is eliminate the stress of defensive reactions. Now, why is it important to eliminate stress? This is why. Stress is what accelerates the aging process, and stress accumulates to create future states of disease. So, if you know when all these predicted moments are going to happen and you can prepare for them before they happen, what happens is you can't be manipulated by your defensive design. You see, in this sentient space time reality, that's the first part of what you have to understand if you want to achieve the overall objective. Now, we're going to talk about the objective on the bottom there, but before we do that, we're really going to focus in now on what's happening here in day 6. Now, in this 3-5 emotional 6.5 day sequence, this has been pretty vanilla. And I say that because when we get to a level 4 or above, that's when our defensive mechanisms, that's when human nature is really going to be activated. And you can see that in both the first person and in the third person, we really haven't got much above a 4. Now, what's the difference between first and third person? Well, first person is your general sphere of people. These are the people you live with. These are the people you work with. These are the people you see in your community on a day to day basis. And when these first person agitation points come up, you're going to have problems with either their routines or how they're interacting, how they're communicating, and why it's causing you stress. And it's okay to talk to people about if there are conflicts or issues. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to ignore those problems, and you definitely don't want to address them in ways that are going to create more stress between those individuals. So, super important to know when you're going to be primed to want to talk about things. And it's okay, again, to talk about them, but if you do, you got to keep it constructive or positive instead of destructive or negative. We're designed to be negative. We need to use our conscious choice and our willpower to ensure that we don't do that. Now, what's third person? Well, third person is the bigger picture. This is the collective picture. This is like our philosophical beliefs, our political parties that we invest in. And these are the things that will get us agitated at the larger level. It doesn't have anything to do with our immediate sphere of people. Now, maybe the people around us believe in our philosophical beliefs. Maybe they don't. Now, that can cause stress and agitation too. And it's important to know when these points come, because you don't want to get into counterproductive arguments that don't lead to less stress in the future. Now, the last thing we do is we combine these two things for you. And this is what I really like to show people is the combined. Why? Well, stress is messy. And if you have stress in your home or work or in your community, and then you see something on the news about your personal beliefs that doesn't go your way too, those two things are going to come together and aggregate and make it even harder on you. It's going to amplify your stress load. So what we've done here is we really highlight when we hit that combined level. And if it gets above a 4, well, then it's going to be a little tougher sequence. Now you can see this 3-5, it definitely gets to a 4 here periodically, and it even goes above a 4. But for the most part, it's staying at a 4 or below a 4. So this has been intermittent. This has been much easier. In the previous emotional sequence, and the ones that are coming after this, it's going to be at a 4 and above a 4. And what that does is it activates our defensive mechanisms, and it really doesn't lay off the gas pedal. So it's super, super important to know when these increased levels of agitation are coming, because we're literally empowering you to eliminate your stress, both with the people you share your life with, and with all the other people that you share this planet with, because we got to get along at the third person perspective just as importantly as we have to get along at the first person perspective. All right, so let's focus here a little bit on day 6. And you can see when day 6 starts, we've got some peaks coming here, okay? So we've got a first person peak that's going to sneak up on us, and it's also combining with this agitation or this increased level here. Now, in the previous 24 hours, we talked about what this was. This was a mental polarity flip. It flipped between first person. You can see how there's an elevation right here, and then this drops off, and then where that drops off, this pops up. This was actually a mental agitation or a flip. Now, I want to connect this to an event, at least in the United States. Now, yesterday was a big day because President Biden announced that he wasn't going to seek a second term. He actually made this decision as this mental polarity was happening and this third person peak was happening. What a coincidence, because what his decision did is it really affects the collective populations of the United States. This is predicted stuff here. We're just trying to show you how these things are connected and how it's actually guiding and manipulating what's happening around us. Space-time reality is interconnected. It's an individual and a collective experience, and that's why we separate first, third person, and we combine the two. In this next 24 hours, because we still have this mental polarity hitting in the first part of it, highly likely that people are going to be a little agitated or a little bit excited. And that's just messing with our mental rhythms. When these polarity moments elevate and hold, it can really make it a little bit more difficult for us. These are stronger ones. Now, on top of this strong one, you can see it stacks up a little bit. And there's even some elevation in the first person. That's what's creating this first peak right here. So when day 6 starts, it's gonna be a little challenging, and when day 6 ends, it's gonna be a little challenging. All right, so that's the big picture of what's gonna happen in this 24-hour period, and as always, we're gonna come down here now, and we're gonna talk about just the general objective of this sentient space-time reality. It's super important that we not only help people understand what this is, but clearly explain what's expected of us. So, first of all, we're expected not to react and become defensive and have negative relationship. And we're supposed to use our conscious positive choice in order to make sure we're getting along with every member of our team. You see, in this space time reality, we're all born into this team, and our teams are just interconnected families. This entire experience is nothing more than interconnected families, and the younger generation, the sons and the daughters, well, they're the teammates, and the older generations, they're the mothers and the fathers. They should be the team captains and the team leaders. Now, what's happened here is this. We've got a bunch of families that don't agree on what the overall objective is because we didn't know. Now, that's the first thing that's causing all of the problems at the larger level. You see, you can have a family that actually gets along. You can have a family that says they love each other and they don't fight and they support each other. But if they don't understand what they're supposed to be supporting each other in and what they're supposed to be trying to instill or trying to inspire their family to do, then it's going to create imbalance. And what every family in this space-time reality is expected to do is to perfectly balance their choices and their routines with the bigger picture, the larger level. So they should be investing in family strategies, individual strategies, world strategies, and national strategies. Now, what's happened here is our past and present leadership of our families, because they didn't understand this construct, they've been overinvesting in family and individual strategy. And they're doing this because it's part of our defensive nature, right? We want to make sure that our future generations at our family level are going to have an advantage. So then we spend more time making sure that we have more resources. And what this is doing is it's creating an environment where not every family can have the same amount of resources, which creates an unbalanced reality. So Health Reconnected is really taking the time to be super clear on what it is we're expected to do. All of our interconnected families are not only supposed to be getting along with the members within the structure of their family, but they're also supposed to be integrating their perspectives with all the other families in the world. And once they do that, and once we all agree that we're on the same team because we come from the same mathematics, and once we all agree that we have to equally invest in these four strategies, which means there are a lot of families that are going to have to start to sacrifice some of the resources. They're going to have to let go of some of the time that they've invested to ensure that their family would be well. And they're going to have to start investing in strategies that ensure that all the other families they've been competing with are also going to do well. Now, why do we say this? Well, because it's the only way that you can achieve the objective of the space time reality. Well, what's the objective? The objective is to be healthy. Now, if you are not doing these things, these green, yellow, orange, and red colors, these are the frequencies that govern our choices. So if we're overinvesting or underinvesting in any of these first person relationships or any of these third person strategies, then we're going to be out of balance with these governing frequencies. Every individual that commits to this process, every individual that says from this day forward, I am going to get along with every team member in my team, and I'm going to try to get along with every team member of all the other families that exist. In addition, I am willing to sacrifice some of my individual desires, the things that I really want. You see, our feelings and even our feelings of what it is we think we're supposed to do here, they're unbalanced. How do you know? Well, because if you're so concentrated on what you need to do or what you need to do with your family, what that does is it pulls you away from what you need to do at the larger level. So there is going to have to be some self-sacrifice, and this is going to happen for all of us. Every single one of us has desires or has this need or this feeling that we have something to contribute. It's true, you do. But your contributions cannot be out of balance because if they are, all that does is it harms your individual body. Now, if you do not balance all of these quadrants, which means you don't balance all of these relationships, these are the quadrants of your body that will be riddled with the stress that lead to the disease that make this unpleasant for you. Now, that's what'll happen at the individual level if you don't commit to balance. Now, if you get regions of people throughout the world that don't commit to balance, what that's going to do is it's not going to disrupt their body, but it's going to disrupt their environment they share with those people. This is literally a biofeedback system. It is teaching you at the individual level and is teaching us at the collective level. And if we don't understand this design, all that happens is we suffer. You see, it's a negative feedback loop. It's designed to teach us by showing us the negative side of our choices, and we're actually designed to make negative choices. And what this will do is it's going to create this point where it becomes so bad for us that it's going to be a whole lot easier to change than it would be than if we didn't have all this negativity. All right, so what I've done here is I've tried to explain to you at the individual level why you want to balance, and at the regional level why we want to balance. And Health Reconnected needs as much leadership as we can possibly do for this. We need leaders within families that are going to encourage their families to not only do what they're interested in, but to make sure that they're not out of balance with their interests. Then we also need leadership here that's willing to not only do work within their own family, but we need them to try to inspire and connect all the families together in our community because that's how we're going to create regional differences. We can actually minimize the social tragedy and these weather events by investing in this strategy. That's what Health Reconnected is all about. And now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about day 6, 24 hours zoomed in. Now we do this because this is the easiest way for us to help you confirm that you're in a sentient space-time reality. In the 24-hour period, we really zoom this in for you. So you can see when every peak is going to happen, and then we align the peaks with all 24 time zones. So to find your time zone offset, you come down here, you sort through this. Once you find your time zone offset, this will hold for 10 seconds and you'd snapshot it so it can be on your phone. Now, this is for people that don't have good internet access all day long. If you got great internet all day long, go to our homepage, healthreconnected.com. We have a live feed. It's set to universal time. You don't have to do anything other than open it up, and it's got a time bar that runs right through this sequence. I use it every single day, and this is why. When you start to feel defensive, or you notice the people around you are starting to get agitated or defensive, and you open that up and look, you're going to see that time bars coming into these peaks. That's how our defensive design is manipulating us. So we are giving you the most value, the biggest bang for your buck by showing you exactly when this is happening. Because if you know when it's happening and you can prepare for it, or if it starts to happen and you're almost ready to be defensive and you look at this, it can stop you from making your stress worse, which makes all your problems worse in this space-time reality. That's how this works. Now, that's a pretty good explanation of why we do this 24-hour zoomed in. Now, what we're going to talk about are these alignments. These alignments are super important to understand. They make it very easy for us to explain why you're having negative effects or why you're feeling different parts of your body and things that you might not like. These alignments, these are when two frequencies come together and amplify. And the best way to explain this is imagine when two hands of a clock come together. When that happens, the two frequencies are in perfect synchronization, and that amplifies what we're expected to do as far as getting along with a teammate or balancing our routines. Now, the blue lines here represent blue alignments, and that has to do with how well we're doing with our teammates. The purple ones here, they have to do with how well we're balancing our routine. So if you're not getting along with your teammates and the time bar is running through this blue alignment and you feel it in the quadrant that we tell you the alignment is testing, that tells you exactly what relationship you need to start spending more time on and diversifying and making sure that you're cooperating, helping them, learning about them, and encouraging them to balance their routine just like you're trying to do. Now, if the time bar is running through and you feel something in your body that's not so pleasant and it's going through a purple alignment, that means that you're out of balance in your overall routine. And depending on what this purple alignment is connected to, it'll tell you what part of your routine you need to balance more. That's how important this is. This is biofeedback, and these are the easiest moments for us to point out to you. And that's why we talk about them. All right, so let's start with the alignments here. And we're going to talk about this first one. And the first one is this EE, okay? That's this one right here. It's an hour and a half long. It's testing first person perspective. This has to do with young females. So teammates, young female teammates that are starting to become aware of their contributions and what they're going to do for the team, right? And what we're supposed to be doing here is having positive relationship, pushing them to not only do what they're good at, but also making sure that we're pushing them to stay in balance and diversifying so that they're doing all the things and not becoming unbalanced in their approach. If you're doing a great job with this, well, when this alignment happens, good things will happen. Your body will feel better and your experiences will go smoother. If you're struggling with this, the opposite's going to happen. You're going to feel this in the left lower quadrant, and things in your day aren't going to go as smooth for you. That's how this works. We're in biofeedback. All right, so that's a good explanation. Now let's start to run through the rest of these. So the next one we're going to talk about is this PE. That's this guy right here. It's an hour and a half long. This is going to test how you get along with mothers and fathers, the leadership within the structures of families, and how you get along with all the leadership, not just the leadership in your family, but other families that maybe have different focuses at this current moment in time. Now remember, space-time math is a mathematical construct. We are sharing and clearly explaining what it is we're supposed to be doing. And this is something where you really have to develop and show that you're willing to make sacrifice and change for the betterment of not only your family, but all the families we're connected with. Now, if this is hard for you, if this isn't something that it's easy for you to do in your routine, well, then you're going to feel those things up here in your upper quadrants. And you can see we've got a lot of upper quadrant stuff coming. And all of these alignments we're about to talk about, this ME and this MP, when this time bar comes through, it's going to hit all three of these at the same time. That's gonna be a lot. So I expect people are gonna feel this. Why? Because it's obvious. Our leadership within our family has not been balanced, and our families are not getting along, which means a lot of us are gonna have these issues. So this is gonna be confirmation. At the end of this 24-hour period, if people get headaches or sinus problems, visual changes, upper respiratory issues, any of the stuff that has to do with these quadrants, it is letting you know where you need to grow, where you need to invest, and how you need to start looking at this from the bigger picture of what it is we're supposed to be doing here. All right, so the last alignment we're going to talk about is this time alignment. Now, remember, time alignments are about how you are scheduling your time and how you're using that time in your daily routines to ensure that the bigger picture is going to be better for all future generations. And there are two of them here. We've only got one 7.75 hours listed, but there's one here and one here. And these are going to test the lower right quadrant. So this has to do with individual balance. And like I said before, this is a tough one because as individuals, we really feel connected or motivated to do one part of this. And it's going to be hard for us to not overinvest in that one area. I experience this too. I am constantly trying to make sure that I'm balancing not only my time and what I'm doing in the Health Reconnected project, but to make sure that I'm equally investing in all the other aspects of my life. And it's difficult. It's difficult to invest in the other areas that you're not as interested in, okay? So if you have problems in right lower quadrant during these two alignments, and they're not very long, but they're pretty strong, these would be direct hits. And it would tell you that you're out of balance in your routine. That's what it's telling you, okay? All right, so let's move down here now, and we're going to talk about the testing sequence today. So there are many, many frequencies that are going to test our body today. And what we worry about is that number 4. Just like in the polarity moments, 4 is also in the testing sequence, the number that we're concerned about. So if it gets above 4 frequencies at a time in a quadrant, it's highly likely that you're going to feel that quadrant. Now you can see that the right lower quadrant and the left upper quadrant are pretty much below a 4 the entire sequence. And the opposite is happening in the right upper quadrant and left lower quadrant. They're at a 4 or above a 4 the entire sequence. So that right there is going to tell you it's much more probable you're going to feel this upper right and this lower left, okay? Those are the most probable areas just on testing frequencies alone. Now, this is where the 10 strongest frequencies are during this period of time. And I always like to look side to side and then top to bottom. So first of all, we've got 2 here on the left, 2 here. So that means we have 4 on the left. That means we have 6 on the right. So the stronger frequencies, we've got a little imbalance where it's a little bit stronger on the right. And then we've got 3 here, 3 here. So we've got 6 on the top, which means we have 4 on the bottom. So there's a little bit more going on in the upper extremities today as well. Now, when we add that in with these alignments, you can see there's probably more going on in the upper quadrants today, but we do have some lower quadrant stuff too. What this means is this: it's a pretty balanced day. And if you are not equally investing and getting along with your teammates, and if you are not equally investing and making sure that your routines reflect your choices to help the world, the national, the individual, and the family level, that's where you're going to experience stuff. Today's pretty balanced. Now, because these upper ones are a little bit tougher, I expect people are going to experience upper stuff more than lower stuff. But if they're going to experience lower stuff, it's probably more likely to be on the left side, okay? Because we have 1, 2, 3 of these macros on the left and only 1 on the right. All right, so that's a pretty good explanation of what you should expect here. Now we're going to end this out. So what Health Reconnected has done here is we've literally posted the electromagnetics for the rest of this year. You know, when every polarity moment's going to come, it's going to agitate us both at the first person level and at the third person level before it even happens. Now we're doing this to proactively empower you to not be duped and manipulated by these points. It is trying to make us fail. We are designed to fail. Now, once we understand this pattern, we can definitely use our willpower and our conscious choice to make sure that we're not being defensive, to make sure we're not avoiding our problems, and to make sure that we're not making our problems worse for ourselves. Now, in the meantime, I just want people to have access to this, because if you have to travel or you're going to be in large groups of people and these moments start to elevate above a 4 and stay there, it is highly likely, and you've seen this happening throughout our world, that all of these tragic events where people are getting into fights, or even worse, they're getting hurt and injured, okay? That's happening during these elevated moments. So super important to know when those elevated moments are coming, because you can then be prepared for them. And in the beginning, you might want to avoid large groups of people until we start to get this a little bit better under control. All right, so that's a pretty good breakdown of what this is all about and what we're trying to do to help empower you. We'll see you in the next 24-hour post.